good to be with you guys this morning. Thank you so much for worship today. It was precious. Precious. Grateful. Advent in the 21st century is a challenge because it is a deliberate and intentional call to slow down, to step back, to pay attention, and we just layer it in on top of an already busy calendar and come to what for us, Jude and I, our favorite day of the year, which as Canadians is Boxing Day. The day we can just collapse after the 25th, after Christmas Day, right? In which there is no agenda, in which there is just leftovers. We don't have to work hard on making anything happen. All of the noisemakers have gone home. Sorry, I love my granddaughters, but okay, it's a weather system is what it is. Now, all right, is so good. And what it illustrates, especially in the 21st century, is the fact that we know, or at least think we know, how to party, but we don't really know well how to celebrate. And so the third Sunday of Advent, the day of joy, is a day that says, maybe we could set aside all of the partying and learn instead how to celebrate as a spiritual practice, as a discipline, to enjoy the provision, the gifts of God. And it does this in a defiant way. The Advent season, the joy candle gets lit in a way to push back the darkness of the seasons that we're in. And you recognize the seasonality too. I mean, we could just spend a lot of time thinking about how this represents some of the seasons that we're in terms of the solstice and the extended nighttime and all of the things. And we light a candle. We light a candle and recognize all that it represents for us and to us. The primary texts that drive our Advent reflection are from the books of the Old Testament prophetic books, Isaiah being predominant among them. And because we, by necessity, have to kind of pick texts that are almost out of context, it's worthwhile reminding ourselves that Isaiah is, the image I used the other week is kind of like a Russian doll. His prophetic words have this surface meaning that are significant and meaningful to him and his community, and had like real-time implications for how the people in his day and age ought to live. But as we look back at them through the lens of the life of Jesus, we recognize there's something beneath the surface of that Russian doll. And we begin to unpack them. We begin to pull them apart and discover right at the very center a treasure that we hadn't seen at first glance. And because they're constructed, we have one in our home, and it's constructed so carefully that you can't tell that it's hollow. You can't see the seam. You have to know it's there. And Isaiah functions like that. Just looking at it at the surface, we say, oh yeah, that's rich and meaningful and powerful to the people to whom he was writing. It had implications for them. It has fulfillment to them. But if you start to unpack it a little bit, you realize, there's something. And then as we lean into the center, there's a treasure at the center, right? And it's important that we do that, because if we're not careful, we'll think Isaiah had it easy peasy. All was well, And the fact is, Isaiah lived in a time when the government was incompetent and corrupt and made things worse, not better, for the majority of its people. He lived in an age in which the structures of his culture, particularly the church culture, if you will, or the temple culture, had failed its people. The priests were corrupt. The damage at the soul level was profound. And still, Isaiah has these visions, these dreams, these ideas. And so it's almost against the backdrop of that bleakness, right, that we light a candle that says, no, it's not over yet. And so I'm going to just ask you to turn your attention in this season to Isaiah 35. We've already heard, I think Jude read from it this morning, and it says this, verse 1. The desert and the parched land will be glad. The wilderness will rejoice and blossom like the crocus. It will burst into bloom. It will rejoice greatly and shout for joy. The glory of Lebanon will be given to it, the splendor of Carmel and Sharon. They will see the glory of the Lord, the splendor of our God. So strengthen the feeble hands. Steady the knees that give way. Say to those with fearful hearts, be strong. Don't be afraid. Your God will come. He will come with vengeance, with retribution. He will come and save you. Then the eyes of the blind will be opened, and the ears of the deaf unstopped. Then the lame will leap like a deer, and the mute tongue shout for joy. Water will burst forth in the wilderness, and streams in the desert. The burning sand will become a pool, the thirsty ground, bubbling springs. In the haunts where jackals once lay, grass and reeds and papyrus will grow, and a highway will be there. It will be called the highway of holiness. It will be for those who choose to walk on that way. The unclean will not journey on it. Wicked fools will not go about on it. No lion will be there, nor any ravenous beast. They will not be found there. Only the redeemed will walk there. Those the Lord has rescued will return. They will enter Zion with singing. Everlasting joy will crown their heads. Gladness and joy will overtake them, and sorrow and sighing will flee away. Hear the word of the Lord. It's hard to imagine how that text might have landed in Israel's story that had been crushed under the weight of oppression, including the oppression brought on themselves by their own stupid, by their own rebellion, because that's where most of our crushing comes. Is that fair to say? We like to scapegoat. We like to blame. We like to find responsibility for the bad things in our life from other people. We love to identify the problem and don't look often in the mirror, long enough at least, to notice it's me. I'm my own worst enemy. But even in that case, even when we do look with honesty and integrity in the mirror and notice, I am my own worst enemy, I am the problem in my life, we hear this thundering declaration that God is on the move in hope and life. And so this imagery, and you hear the poetry of Isaiah, in which he's just trying to grab a hold of all of these images that would be meaningful and rich and significant for a people who have maybe stopped noticing the power of nature to teach them. Because that's what happens, isn't it? When the cloud crushes you to the ground, you don't notice. You don't notice you don't lift your eyes and see the sun tinting the sky. You don't notice the tiny little flowers that promise a spring. You don't notice the greening at the edges of a tree that looks dead. You don't notice because your head is bowed to the ground. You're crushed under the weight of it. An image that I had, it's a story that I haven't thought of, but it came to me in my devotions yesterday. It was this image of this woman. You remember the story? 18 years she had been bent and bowed over. She was walking crushed under the weight, and the extent of her vision was the ground. And as a woman, she is in the back of the synagogue, as far from the center of action as she can possibly be, a mute reminder of all that life had handed out to these people. And what does Jesus do? The visiting rabbi in the tabernacle, you remember what he does? He brings her out of the woman's section, and he invites her to make her way slowly, staring at the ground the whole way to the very front, and invites her on a Sabbath day to stand upright. And she does. That to me is a metaphor for what Jesus does to us all the time. He takes us from the edges of our despair, and he invites us to lift up our heads. And this is what Isaiah is doing. He's saying, look, the desert and the parched land will be glad. These images are full and rich and vibrant. This outrageous hope in the middle of a moment. Just notice, gleaming on the horizon is the wonder of God's coming to you. Remember, as we learned with hope and peace, these are not empty concepts. We don't hope for changed circumstances. We hope in the Lord. Peace has a first name. His name is Jesus. He doesn't just come to end conflict. He comes to restore wholeness. And in that same vein, joy is not just an emotional reaction or response. It is a transformative awareness that in the middle of our bleakness, there's hope, there's shalom, and joy has a first name, the God who comes to us, right? And the image I love in this one most of all, and just to be very candid, partly why I chose this passage, is the image of the crocus. Those of you who have grown up in Southern California have probably not much awareness of crocus. But for people who grew up in the snow country, anybody else grow up, Southern Alberta? I'll tell you, I talked to my sister yesterday, it's minus 25. It's like, I don't think God intended people to live in those kinds of climates. I just don't. But that winter, I mean, we got snow often in time for Halloween, and that snow sometimes would stay on the ground through April. It was miserable, and you get the picture. So here you are on a wind chill factor minus 50, making your way to school in March or April. And there, just peeking its way out through the cloud cover of the snow, was this tiny, innocuous, tiny lavender purpley flower. And no matter what your mood heading into that day, that crocus was the promise of spring. The awareness that, no, there's life underneath that death. There's life underneath that snow. It pops its head up and says, I'm coming back, right? This awareness that this is not all there is. What you see, this landscape of bleakness, is not all you see. That crocus sticks its head up with a defiant nevertheless, right? And that's the image that Isaiah, among others, capitalizes on to say to them, this symbol of winter's end, poking its head up, defying winter, saying spring is on the way. That long winter of despair is yielding to the promise of new life, as it must. As it must. So how do we live while still the snow covers the ground? While still the circumstances of our life are bleak and causing, how do we live with the promise of the crocus? With the promise of the possibility. And so Isaiah says, here's what you do. You strengthen the feeble hands. You steady those knees that have given way. You say to those with fearful hearts, don't be afraid. Your God will come. This strategy of encouragement, this lifting of their heads and a shifting of attitude, pushing back against the fear that this is all I'm ever going to know. This is all I will ever experience. It will be winter forever. Remember the images in Lewis's Witch in the Wardrobe. No. Just lift your head. Sniff the air. Can you feel? Spring is coming. The breeze is warming. And so this shifting of attitudes is anchored in the fact that God is on the move. He will bring to rights all that has gone wrong. This is the source, finally, of joy. God's ultimate victory. This is our response. Take courage. Don't be afraid. It hasn't shifted yet, right? But the promise is there. And we're going to cling to it. In the middle of our despair, we're not going to keep staring at the ground when we have an opportunity to lift our heads. We're going to press into the deep reality and keep our eyes on the underlying joy. And then he says, when this occurs, the eyes of the blind will be opened, the ears of the deaf unstopped. Anybody wonder why Jesus does the miracles that he does? He's taking his cues from Isaiah. And that enables Matthew and Mark and others to look back through the life of Jesus into the prophecy of Isaiah and say, oh, wait, there's a crack in the Russian doll. There's wonder underneath the surface that Isaiah himself perhaps didn't even see, couldn't even possibly imagine. But now we see through the life of Jesus a deeper and more profound awareness that God is on the move. And the particular miracles that Jesus did, that Isaiah snapshots for us, and Jesus deliberately and intentionally draws attention to, helps us to know whatever it was that Isaiah was talking about, joy has a first name. Jesus has come. And so this invitation out of this death, out of this dryness, out of this barrenness is to imagine a sacred imagination, there it is, of a future of abundance. A future of abundance. He says there will be a highway, a way of holiness. And it will not be for those who live as if there is no God. You notice that language in verse 8 there? The unclean won't journey on it. Wicked fools will not go about it. Fool for Isaiah, for Jesus, is a technical term. Psalm 14 says, the fool has said in their hearts, there is no God. So here we are in the midst of our bleakness and despair, that is trying to wring out of us our confidence in God who appears to be ghosting us, not Holy Ghosting us, just ghosting us. You know what I mean? Anybody experience, was that, you're good? Yeah. Anybody experience God not returning your calls? So you know And what do we do? What do we do? Isaiah says, you keep on walking on the highway because you're not a fool. You don't live as if there is no God just because he doesn't respond in the way you want him to in the time that you want him to. You keep walking on the way of holiness. You know how to walk. Do you think he might not want to carry you all the time but invite you to walk with him? The most dangerous atheists are not those who YouTube their atheism. The most dangerous ones are those who go to church every Sunday and live the rest of their lives as if there is actually no God. So Isaiah says, we're not going to walk in the same way. We're going to walk in the way of the Lord. We're going to walk in the way of holiness. We're going to walk in the way of wisdom, the way of the Lord, and discover a place of safety there, a place of encouragement. And they will enter, he says, Zion, this promised land, with singing, with everlasting joy, with gladness and joy overtaking them. Those who walk in the way of holiness don't need to be afraid. They are the redeemed. This overwhelming vision of the future is one of great joy, a celebration of the triumph of God. Sorrow and grief, they last for a day. But joy comes in the morning. And I want you to hear the different play on words there, right? Because sometimes joy comes in the M-O-U, morning. This is a challenging week for me. And whether I remember it or not, my soul remembers that on December the 10th, 1984, my mom died. And sometime in the course of the days around that day, I just realized something's off in the universe. Your body remembers things. Your soul remembers, even if you're not cognizant of specifically what it is. Something's off. You know what I mean? And then I look at the calendar and it's like, oh. But that's not the final word. The final word for Isaiah's people, the final word for the people of God, the final word for the people who walk in the way of holiness is not death, but life. It's the deep and profound awareness that if God can raise the dead, and he can, I'm going to be fine. All will be well. Death does not, cannot, will not have the final say over us. And this invitation to step into that responsive reality is an invitation to celebrate, not just party. Because a lot of our partying is a way of masking, of pretending. Joy never denies reality. It just says, nevertheless. Joy never defies pain, never ignores it, never undermines the problems. It says, bring it on, bro. Do your worst. Do your damnedest. And then the crocus sticks its head up above the snow and says, spring is on the way. Do you feel the shift in the temperature? Do you feel the lift? Those of you who have been grown up in winter climates, you know what the first smell of spring does to your soul. You know? I mean, it is still bleak. It is still snowy. It is still, if I stay still too long, I'm going to die. I'm going to freeze out here, right? But nonetheless, right? Spring is on the way. This is the invitation. To him, he says, no ravenous beast won't be found there. Only the redeemed will walk there. They will enter the promised land. They will enter Zion with everlasting joy. That is a response to what God has done. But please notice, that joy is also a refuge. It is a capacity for the meantime. It is an ability that a fuel, because sometimes joy is blow the roof off celebration, yeah? But sometimes joy is put it in the lowest gear you can and just idle your way out of the ditch. Now, those of you, I just realized that's probably an illustration that no longer has any relevance to anybody who's never driven a manual stick shift car. Did anybody track with me on that one? Okay, just explain it to your neighbor what I'm talking about there. Because sometimes it's a dumb story, but sometimes in Edmonton, where Jude and I met, the snow was so deep and so thick you would get stuck having parked your car. It would get so cold that the bottom of the rubber tires would go flat and would not come to round again until you had pumped your way through. I can still remember sometimes getting stuck in my little Mazda 808 gear shift car, and you're just stuck. So what did we do? Us brilliant people, we put it in first gear and let the wheels spin. Then we would get out. I'm the driver. I would get out of my car and push myself out of and then just run as fast as you could to catch up with the car that was idling its way down the road. In first gear, you can do that. Joy does that sometimes, does it not? It just says, put it in gear. We're going to idle our way out of this. It's not just the blow the roof off celebration. It's not happiness. Sometimes it's that defiant nevertheless. Whatever is happening around me and to me, and it has not got the last word. Spring is on the way. Spring is on the way. It is anchored in the final triumph of God, inaugurated at Bethlehem. Because remember, Advent isn't really about Christmas. It's about second coming. The hymn for today, Joy to the World, is not a Christmas carol. It's an Advent carol. It's a carol that says Christ is coming back. The Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. That's the invitation. So here, that joy, that defiant nevertheless to whatever circumstance I am in, gives me capacity for my life as it actually is right now. So the joy and the hope of the previous 2 weeks aren't like joy. None of them ignore the reality. None of them ignore what is actually happening. It enables us to imagine a wonder beyond imagining, to consider what might be dawning on the horizon. So joy enables courage when we might otherwise be afraid. Joy enables persistence when we are bored to tears, when we feel like it's just one foot in front of the other. I would say joy is more needed in those seasons of the mundane, when nothing much seems to be happening, when you've planted the seed but the flower has not begun to break the soil. Those moments. So joy also is enabling hope when we might otherwise despair in grief, but it is able to handle the deep and profound awareness that God can raise even our death. I just love the fact that when the angels showed up to those shepherds on the fields as they kept watch over their flocks by night, I mean, you hear the layers of symbolism in there. The reason God came was because the shepherds of Israel, the priests and the prophets, had failed. So who does the message come to? That joy was born in the city of David. Shepherds who were doing their job in the darkness, keeping watch over their flocks by night. That's what shepherds are supposed to do. And so to those shepherds, the crocus popped up in the song of the angels, saying, joy is born. Joy is born to all people, right? This deep and profound awareness. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. And because Jesus knows we're going to need some help with this, remember what he said on his way out the first time? My joy I give you, so that your joy might become full. You're going to be going into a world in my name in which joy will be necessary. So I'm giving you mine. The joy that enabled Jesus to endure the cross is actually yours. Right here, right now. You have capacity for what is. Let's pray. Oh Lord, I thank you for the deep and profound promise of this moment, of this text, of this opportunity that we have on this, the third Sunday of Advent, to be reminded that we're not ever alone, that even though the darkness feels sometimes like it's closing in, even though the darkness of our busyness blinds us to the wonder, we are never alone. You are coming to us. You are with us. And I pray, oh God, for this community, that you would give us joy unspeakable and full of glory as we embrace you who have come. Amen.